Are you serious? Are you serious, folks? Now, we've just talked about Iraq and what's happening there. Now let's swing to Europe. Let's go to the Ukraine. And Russia has just submitted a draft yesterday, Thursday, June the 12th, 2014. Russia submits a draft on Ukraine for resolution at the United Nations. The United Nations is reporting that Russia has submitted a draft resolution on Ukraine at the Security Council yesterday, demanding that the United Nations play a greater role in resolving the crisis and accuse Kiev of using white phosphorus. Now, Russian Ambassador Vitaly Churkin said he introduced the draft at closed-door consultations that focused on Iraq, adding that it had been met with some support and some suggestions. He said it updated a June 2nd measure that received a cool response from the Security Council and called for an immediate end to the violence, a sustained ceasefire, and a greater UN involvement in efforts to broker a solution. Currently chaired by Swiss President Burkhalter, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe has been at the forefront of attempts to try to resolve the crisis. In May, the OSCE drew up a plan to help bring the pro-Western Kiev authorities and pro-Moscow militants into the southeast to the negotiating table, but no progress has been made in several rounds of dialogue that excluded the armed separatists. Now, Russia wants UN Security General Ban Ki-moon to support the OSCE efforts to implement the roadmap and launch a dialogue involving all political forces and regions of the country, according to Churkin. It is important for the Security Council to play a role and for the United Nations to increase its role in trying to settle the situation in Ukraine and to stop the violence. Diplomats say Russia earlier Ukraine draft was at least partly a bargaining chip as the West scrambles to avoid Moscow vetoing a resolution on enforcing humanitarian access in Syria. So Churkin denied there was any relation when questioning Thursday. Moscow has accused Kiev of using prohibited mutations, but Churkin said there were reports for the first time that Ukraine was using white phosphorus in the fighting. So using chemical warfare in the fighting in Ukraine. We are very disturbed about it, he said. Now, Russia's news agencies quoted Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov as saying there have been attempts from Ukraine to depart from the principles stipulated in the roundup. The lack of any progress whatsoever in efforts to stop the violence and halt the military operations, is causing increased concern, he told reporters. So Russia is going to the UN looking for some type of resolution that will force everybody to the table. Meanwhile, it continues to fester in Ukraine. And what Putin's done is he's done a slow drip effect in weakening. It's almost as if it's a war of attrition by simply just softly killing them with, he's got them surrounded. There's pro-Russian militants on the inside fighting, but there's also a corrupt government in Kiev, and the people are caught in the middle. It's really sad. It's the same thing you got over in Syria, and it may end up being the same thing in Iraq. The world is spinning out of control. Wars and rumors of wars. End time apocalyptic events. Now, wow. As you watch these things unfold, You have a very unstable Asia right now with North Korea and with China flexing its muscles, trying to take over the entire South China Sea so that they're the ones that can drill for the oil in that very rich sea full of petroleum. Meanwhile, you have the conflict in the Middle East in Syria, which is bloody and is horrific. It's a proxy war between the United States and Russia. Then you've got Ukraine conflict, which is absolutely a potential time bomb. And now you have Iraq between Sunnis and Shiites. And, who's going to... Iran might get on the same side with America on this. I mean, so when you look at all the things going on, you see a very... And then don't even talk about the economy. You want to talk about something that's really unstable, the economy. So we're really living in the last days that Jesus said would happen. And you have to ask yourself, do you want to be left behind? I don't think so, because the wrath of God, when it's poured out, is not a place you want to be. Yet, do you think you can live in this life of avoiding God and trying to survive in a world, in a culture, eat up from the inside with evil forces and secular humanistic beliefs and atheistic thoughts that end up turning angry toward God? I mean, seriously, it's time to get right with God. It is now's the day of today. Today is the day of salvation. I invite you to come to my show today, just to hear the word of the Lord. And we'll give an altar call as we always do. And you can ask yourself, are you saved? And do you want to become a Christian? It's time to rise above the fray. It's time to get Christ in your life, to be blessed in a world that has certainly been cursed.